Padres Hot Tub, everybody. Great to be back with you. Monday, February 10th is when we are recording. Craig Elston, Chris Reed, Raphie Cantor, as always, but a special guest making a return appearance to Padres Hot Tub, the great Justin Halpern. Welcome back, Justin.
I'm honored to be back. So happy to be back. Thanks for having me, guys.
Returning champion.
I won the first round.
Hey, you came on once. We got to the NLDS. I mean, come on twice. What the possibilities? They're endless.
Yeah, I'm your good luck charm.
I mean, I think definitely you appearing, Justin, guarantees we will play a baseball season this year. So I'd like to have you on in 2027. That's all I'm saying. Is like if we...
I know, yeah. Then I will not guess the year of 2027. Those will be some real dark podcasts.
Oh yeah, listen, we're going to be breaking out a Stratomatic set. We're going to be doing out of the park. Like there's going to be a lot of fantasy going on because there's going to be no reality except for the darkness of our souls. But that's hoping we get to 2027. Let's keep the cart in front of the horse, or maybe move it aside and let the horse get to work. All right, quick housekeeping. If you're out there and you are in our Patreon community already, or you're about to join us, patreon.com/Padres Hot Tub, it's the last call to get into our fantasy baseball for 2025. Justin, I don't know if you know, but we've got, I don't even know what level we're to now. 6 tiers, 7 tiers?
Yes. I think it's 5 tiers, and then there's an offshoot keeper league. But we are
okay, so there's the chance for a 6th this year if we get enough. This is a promotion relegation English football style fantasy league. So, if you finish in the top 2, you move up. If you finish in the bottom 3, you go down. I fell from the top league to the second league last year. Too many injuries. And so, I mean, it's wild. It's a little bit intricate, but it's a lot of fun.
It sounds great. It sounds exactly like there's no amount of nerdy that's too nerdy for my fantasy tastes. Sounds great.
One other piece of housekeeping, we are setting up, and we have set up a channel in our Discord for Suite Life. That's for the annual Padres Hot Tub suite at a Petco Park game. We have a survey form up right now for patrons to indicate if they're interested and which particular games they could go to, and what type of suite they'd like to get, so on and so forth. So if you're down for that, go ahead, fill out the form and help us get informed. Kim Possible is helping us get this all organized once again. And very much looking forward. Last year was a real blast, even though I think the real blast was a 3-run homer by the Blue Jays off Vasquez in the first inning. And Dalton Varsho making good catches and all of this. Nonetheless, it was a great time had by all. We're going to do it all again in 2025. So check it out if you're a member of our Patreon community on the Discord. And if not, come join the Patreon community. All right, Justin, we're done with housekeeping. Apologies for making you wait. What's your thoughts right now after this dark interregnum? Tell us now. What are your thoughts?
So I gotta say, it feels a little... There was something actually that Raphie said a few episodes ago about the Machado, Tatis, and Xander contracts that has stuck with me since you said it, Raphie. And it's the idea that when we were first signing those giant contracts, we were thinking, oh no, do we have too much money locked up in these 4 players or 3 players? And now it is, thank God, that money is locked up in those players, because can you imagine if it wasn't? I think so first off, I'm sort of like thankful to Peter's ghost for probably foreseeing that he has some fucked up family situations and that there was no great succession plan he was ever going to be able to put together in his will that made this something that was going to be sustainable going forward, right? So our floor at least is a lot higher. We have a puncher's chance probably every season. But it feels different. Everybody keeps saying to me, oh, well, at this time last year, right? At this time last year. Except the difference is we don't have the pieces to do what AJ did at this time last year. There is no move to get Cease. The move right now is to move Cease if we want to get anything, right? To move King if we want to get anything. And so it feels tough. It feels like, and just not to start this out on a huge bummer, but we lucked out in almost every way we could luck out with the moves that we made. People talk about well, I'm sure we'll talk about Heyward and Joe, but later, but like Heyward and Joe, they're going to be the Profar and Peralta and this year. And it's like, do people not remember the Carpenter Cruz platoon?
Mhm.
Like I still have nightmares about the Carpenter Cruz platoon. And so I guess I'm just feeling right now at this moment, not like, oh, all is lost, but that I need to set my expectations in a place where they are realistic if I am to continue as a Padres fan and not leave myself to have the rug pulled out from under me.
Well, I mean, I think you're talking, you're singing from the same playbook, songbook, that we are for sure in terms of just the overall look of it, But dang, Raphie, that has to be your all-time PHT highlight. Because how many times have I told you how much I thought of that too?
I was like putting the flag of my country around my shoulders and doing my victory lap around the track field. But I'm glad that like we've kind of that there's, I don't know, been some kind of reckoning about these deals, which I felt a good amount of dread about basically since we've signed them. Where, yeah, I mean, again, it's like I was there when John Morse got divorced and and how ugly that situation got. And who's to say that this couldn't have been that, part 2 Electric Boogaloo? Like it absolutely could have been. So, obviously we don't know what the future portends. The Joe and Heyward signings, obviously, I think kind of give us a little bit of a glimpse in the area we're operating. And so I don't know, maybe we could just get into the news because, hey, this is the first time. And if disregarding Elias Diaz, this is the first time in like 4 months we can talk about something substantial with the Padres. They did something, Craig.
They did. We've got a left field platoon. We've got a guy that'll probably play some first base against lefties as well. We've got a dude that is going to super impress you with a long homer in Peoria, guaranteed. At some point in March, Gavin Sheets will run into one, and it'll go like over the grass berm and head out toward where they have the radio shows, and you'll be like, holy shit, this guy. I tell you what, Gavin Sheets, I like the look of this guy. So yeah, three human beings will be in Padre uniforms. You mentioned the Carpenter Cruz, Justin, and there's always one. This is just like the pebble in my shoe. But, for team 1 year, $1 million contract, right? Hey, we got Profar, 1 year, $1 million. Holy crap. Now we got Connor Joe, 1 year, $1 million. We got Jason Heyward, reportedly probably 1 year, $1 million. You know who we got for 1 year, $1 million in 2023? Adam Engel.
Oh, yeah.
Adam Engel.
Padres legend.
5 at bats.
Yeah. We saw him play live in person, right, Craig? We saw them. We saw all those at bats, or at least 3 of them.
And we paid $1 million for that. And just that was the year of we'll just buy anything. And we're like, oh, hey, come on in, Adam Engel. Oh, yeah, get the hell out of here, Adam Engel. And now that's like, no, that's our left field budget, bro.
It's really tough. What it actually reminds me of a lot is in right now what's happening in the TV and film business just is that they're saying we're going to make less, we're going to spend less, but we're going to make sure that what we spend stuff on will be hits. And it doesn't work that way. Like your hit rate never changes. It's always the same percentage. And so if you make fewer shows, you have fewer hits. And I think with us here, it's like we have made less bets essentially as Padres fans. And as Preller has been Preller's made fewer bets, and the Profar bet hit last year, but it's just the odds are against it happening again this year.
It was more than Profar. It was Solano. It was Peralta. It was just about every roll of the dice came
Higashioka.
up big. Higashioka,
Merrill
yep.
being Merrill.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But Jeremiah Estrada, another waiver wire pickup.
Sure. And that 2023 team had Adam Engel and had Rugnet Odor, Nelson Cruz, Matt Carpenter. All those decisions just landed on the other side of the coin. And
that's right.
This is the mistakes the Padres don't get to make, that the teams playing in the deeper depths of the CBT with higher payrolls, they don't get hurt the same way when their mistakes get made.
Yeah. And also it's worth saying they had actually clutch hitting in 2024, which was completely devoid in 2023. They were historically unlucky in 2023, and they were kind of a little bit lucky in 2024, and that ended up being on a clutch basis, like a 13-win swing alone. So,
Dagnabbit, I was literally just going to bring that up. Yeah.
Oh, go for it.
Well, just the fact that, I mean, look, it's the thing that we got kind of emotionally mad at last year, because the Padres legitimately were a good team, when Joe Sheehan was like, hey, the only difference between this team and last team is that this team went 2-10 in extra innings and the other team went 10-2. And it's just as unlikely one outcome as the other. And we're like, screw you, Joe. We have a good team. And we did. We had a good team. It was not a fact that excluded the Padres from being a good to great team. However, we're just as likely to go 6-6 or 4-8 or 3-9 in those 12 extra inning games this year as we are to repeat a 10-2 or an 8-4 or a 9-3. And then that layer of randomness generally ping pongs back and forth year over year. But okay, here's my entry point to turn this back to Connor, Joe, and Jason Heyward. Justin, we can get to, and we will get to, some tangible and I think logically constructive reasons why these two players could combine and stitch together and in a 60th percentile version of one another be a rock solid left field platoon, no problem. $2 million platoon, very happy, very happy. But the thing I'm worried about, and I did talk about it on the radio today as well, is that last year's team created an identity for itself, that they were going to move the line, that they were going to be a line drive, gap to gap, opposite field, slash hitting team. They're going to prioritize batting average. They're going to maybe lose a walk here or there, but they're going to not strike out, right? They're not going to be a strikeout team. They're going to put the ball in play. Connor, Joe, and Jason Heyward don't fit that. Not at all. They're low average hitters. They draw walks. They take pitches. They're going to go deep in counts. They're going to strike out looking. They're going to strike out swinging. And they're not going to put the ball in play a ton. And every guy you add that's a rock, when you're trying to move the line, Diaz is a rock. These guys are a rock. We don't have a DH spot yet. And I'm concerned. That's why I kept screaming. I spent last week on the radio, Justin, every single day, Monday through Friday. I said, you know what you could do? You could sign David Peralta and Jose Iglesias. You could sign those guys. You could go out and get those guys who keep the identity alive, who's Iglesias especially. He's like basically a rock guarantee to hit 280 to 310, and like that guy's going to hit the other way. He's going to keep the identity. I like these two players. They're okay, but they don't keep the identity.
I absolutely agree. Because I think, when we were talking that Sheehan column, which also pissed me off as a fan last year, and the reason it pissed me off is because we had changed our entire approach. And our approach had been changed specifically, I think, to combat what we were dealing with in late inning scenarios where, a home run a single meant as much as a home run, and so we had changed the way we had approached everything. And we had gotten players, we'd gotten Arise, not because he was the batting champ, but because that's what we were doing last year. We were doing that. And so I feel like this year it feels like it's neither fish nor fowl. And I don't know where that leaves us. I do sort of, because, Heyward, great clubhouse guy, but rock
Yeah.
is not even a heavy enough object to describe like what he is at the plate. I mean, by all accounts, an amazing dude that everyone loves, but like he's not even like a 300 OBP anymore. Like he's not even that. And so part of me thinks like, well, is it going to be something where, all right, maybe Tirso comes up and it's him and Connor who are splitting that platoon, because I just don't know how Jason Heyward is going to fill that role. I think it's like you said, like I don't think that there's any sort of like consistent approach now in our lineup, but I will give you some things that I think can swing back the other way that didn't swing our way last year. Yuki and Wandy were just bad last year for large. I mean, Wandy the whole year. Yuki for stretches he was good, but I think both of those two with a year more with Niebla, maybe they bounce back our way. I think Tatis had an un-Tatis-like year, and I very easily could see him having the kind of year he was starting to have at the end. I mean, he was legitimately terrifying to Dodgers fans in that series. He was out Ohtani, so I do think that there is some hope for that going forward. I mean, what does Merrill look like in a second year? We'll see. But that platoon in left field and that DH spot are just like, they keep me up at night. They like eat away at me.
I am not going to lose any sleep with Connor Joe and Jason Heyward. I think I might have lost a little sleep with Tirso Ornelas and Eggy Rosario, just because both those guys are. Well, I can't say Eggy's limited defensively. He's got a cannon for an arm, and we just don't know what he looks like in the outfield. But we know Tirso's kind of tough, and at least like the bare minimum floor with Jason Heyward is not looking like an idiot out there in the outfield.
Oh no, he'll be really good.
Yeah,
he'll be a significant improvement on Profar defensively. I mean, he's a 5-time Gold Glover going to a small field.
There's value in that, man. With a rock solid defensive outfield, Merrill, Tatis, and Heyward occupying that kind of limited left field, and with Connor Joe, like I look at him, and his lines look a lot like Jurickson Profar pre-career year last year. Like around 700, 730. In 2023, he had a 760 OPS. And he had like his best like contact rates that year. He was getting the ball just a little bit more to kind of couple with what is a really good eye. I think he can fit. And just from the vibe standpoint, boys, this is a Poway guy, Northeast County. That's nice. And then Jason Heyward, it seems like the club always responds positively to like a mercenary leadership guy. Like they've been good. I know Tommy Pham wasn't exactly a mercenary. He was on ARB and finishing up, but like they liked Nelly Cruz and like they liked having Jurickson on it. I think that there are some intangibles brought to the clubhouse by these two guys specifically that weren't available kind of elsewhere. I go to bed a little bit easy on left field, but I think it does kind of narrow where the club's going to go. Like this is the direction they would take if they were planning on starting the season with Dylan Cease in the starting rotation.
I want to make a somewhat generous case for this platoon. I'm not necessarily defending it, but I it's just something as I was going through the stats of Connor Joe and Jason Heyward that I was noticing. So I don't want to look at these guys as like whole careers because like these guys are, both into their 30s. It's kind of useless to pull data from when they were 25, 26. So I thought, okay, let's like just aggregate the last 3 seasons and look at that as a sample size. It's going to be enough of a sample size. For Jason Heyward, that's 713 plate appearances. For Connor Joe, it's 1,355 plate appearances. Plenty of tape. Connor Joe's batting average in the last 3 seasons, 238. Jason Heyward's batting average in the last 3 seasons, 237. You know who that sounds a lot like going into last season?
Jurickson Profar. Sure.
Yes.
Do we have do we have like the Bugs Bunny juice to beat the Monstars
that's
that we
the
can
thing.
give him?
That's not what I'm arguing for. I'm not arguing that these guys are suddenly going to turn into Profar, who all of a sudden figured out how to hit for power last year and be one of the most clutch players we've ever seen in a Padres uniform. I'm not saying that that's what's going to happen. What I'm saying is that going into last season, this was the plan. And this is the same plan. And with the surefire bet of Merrill and Tatis, I'm not saying it's a good plan. I'm just saying it's the same plan. And if you're going to be defending Profar, I think you have to defend this move in the same sense.
Is this an attack for us defending Profar last year, Raphie? Are you
I did not defend Pro. I was dead wrong on Profar.
No, I was talking about me and Craig. This feels like...
No, and I'm going to continue to bully whoever is playing left field this year, because I think last year proved that bullying works. So, so Connor Joe, you're from East County, and you're gonna live with that label. And Jason Heyward. Yeah, Jason Heyward. I don't know. You seem like a good guy, but I assume you're a Dodger turncoat until you prove otherwise.
That's fair.
So there you go.
I mean, I will say.
Yeah,
go ahead, Greg. Sorry.
No, please.
I was just going to say I will say that second half Profar was much closer to the Profar we all kind of assumed, and we played damn well in the second half. We played pretty damn well. So
yeah, and they're probably not going to be tempted to bat Connor Joe or Jason Heyward third, or
I would. If that happens, guys, either it's the best season ever or the worst season ever.
Yeah, exactly. One thing I did see in a stat breakdown from Connor Joe was that he did pretty well at the bottom of the order as a guy, because Connor Joe has some pretty definable strengths. He has a good eye. He'll take a walk. He's got a little bit of power. He hits lefties okay. Like, he's pretty solid against lefties. Righties, not so much. Decent glove, nothing that you'll really write home about, but like, okay, pretty solid all the way around. Good clubhouse guy, so on and so forth. If you take that and you stitch it to Heyward and you really do it right, and you're extremely strict in terms of Connor, you hit lefties. Jason, you hit righties. Lefty comes in, we switch, and then you need to have a torso probably around to be able to be the reverse of the reverse when the Dodgers flip you around, or the Diamondbacks flip you around a second time. But that can work. I do think it can work. And, I think he's a good player to have on your team. So all of that works for me if you do it the right way. It's just, I saw you say it, Raphie, in the Discord earlier today. There's a little bit of a 2023 feel all of a sudden about what could happen if Heyward's in his month where he hits 115 and Elias Diaz does nothing. And you're just like, every time we get to the bottom of the order, it's automatic outs.
Well, that conversation was coming up in the context of where we bat Luis Arias in the order. And I think in the Stratomatic version of the team, you would bat him fourth or fifth. And just try and get a bunch of guys on base before him, and then have, just get him on, get him over sort of situation. But then you look down the lineup and you're looking at your 5 through 9 or 6 through 9 in that situation. And it's just very reminiscent of when we had the bases loaded up for Austin Nola and Trent Grisham in 2023 and Carpenter Cruz, and just hit into a ridiculous amount of double plays. And I mean, like, put those guys aside. Like, having Xander Bogaerts bat fifth that year when he, I think, tied for the lead in the National League in terms of grounding into double plays, when he had all those guys on in front of him. And so there's a little bit of me looking at that lineup like, are we really going to do this again? Like, it's a fool me once, fool me twice sort of situation. And I do have an uneasy feeling in our stomach if that's our lineup going into opening day.
Yeah, I would also say I don't think there's going to be a more challenging team in terms of probability to manage than the Padres this season. I think that there are many ways that Schilt can play this, and I think that the variables are wild. I think that night to night, even, like, he's got to be. We cannot see that version of Schilt who's like, I run my guys out there, love my guys. Like, he's got to be facile. he has to be willing to play matchups. Every series is a new series. And I loved what he did last year, but like he is not does not he's a player's coach. And is he going to be able to do that thing where he's bumping guys in the order, he's moving everybody around that he needs to in order to give us the razor thin margins we're going to need to take some of 2 out of 3 in some of these series.
That's such a good point, and I want to just build off it with the guy that you guys mentioned before. I'm a little off the menu maybe, but Eggy Rosario. I would just throw him into that mix and say that he needs to be the guy that, as you're talking about, Justin, that Schilte has to be kind of strict about when it comes to Jake Cronenworth, and not giving Jake Cronenworth the opportunity over and over and over again to hit against tough left-handed pitchers, to hit against tough left-handed relievers. Oh, well, he's crony, he's this, he's that. No, he's terrible against lefties. He proved it all last year. If he gets a hit, it's a rare day. It's a day to celebrate, but it's not a day to build upon and go, oh, well, that's the guy that we count on. No, it's just a rare thing that happened. Eggy Rosario could take a dude Tank that's a left-handed pitcher, and where Jake Cronenworth hits a nice little ground ball to first base and runs it out hard. Good on you, Jake. Let's be serious, because I agree with you. The margins are the difference between this team winning 82 games or getting into the wild card discussion.
Absolutely. And we talked about already what this, if we're taking Joe and Heyward, we have to come up with a Brangelina sort of name for whatever this platoon is going to be. So HeyJoe just doesn't really kind of, I guess it's a Jimi Hendrix song, but like, yeah, I guess
pretty good.
HeyJoe, there we go. That's actually pretty good. Okay, here we go.
Jimi Hendrix.
HeyJoe.
I like it.
All right. Okay, we might feel like we want to shoot someone just like in the song after we watch them Platoon, but who's to say? Let's look at the bright side of this. So in a strictly Platoon sense, Connor Joe against left-handed pitchers the last 3 seasons, slash line 253, 352 on base percentage, 410 slug. Yeah, 410 slug. That's a 762 OPS, a 108 WRC plus. Jason Heyward against righties, 713 plate appearances the last 3 years, 242 batting average, 320 on base percentage, 422 slug. That's a 742 OPS, 106 WRC plus. So you're looking at a 106 to 108 WRC plus platoon guy. I see what the plan is.
Yeah.
Like you can understand, and bringing up Cronenworth, like if you're going to play a strict platoon, you could see, okay, on days when lefties are up, you have Joe in left field and you have Eggy Rosario playing second base. Yes. On days when righties are up, you have Jason Heyward and Jake Cronenworth at second base. And if you're really strict about that, this is a strategy that, we are always clamoring for the team to take on things that the Dodgers do. The Dodgers are so smart, and they're the best at this. They're the best at asking a guy to do one thing, like Bill Belichick with a young, scrappy slot receiver, and saying, you do this one thing, and that's it.
Yeah.
And I think that this is our version of that. Now, we're doing it off of the trash heap, but we're doing it, and it's what we can do in our financial constraints, Chris.
I think that's a little harsh, trashy, but it's pretty apropos considering there's a heap. It's a heap, and they're getting it off of it. You just point out the Dodgers, Raphie. Jason Heyward was a Dodger 2 seasons ago because they identified this exact platoon for him. The Padres have to win on the tightest of margins. Do you feel any worse about them? Or would you have felt worse about them if they would have went out and spent $6 million on Harrison Bader? I think this is a reasonable, good line of decision making compared to the competition. Randall Grichuk just got a whole lot, like 4 times more than this. He
got basically $8 million when you look at the buyout.
Yeah, the buyouts and the incentives, right? So I'm pleasantly surprised. I know we wanted better. I know that it doesn't make 6, 7, 8 of our lineup much more formidable, but like you guys said, it's a plan, and we're at least getting to see the outlines of what they've been thinking so far this offseason.
Let me ask you guys. Oh, go
I
ahead.
just want to apologize. Chris is right. Trash heap was harsh. These are my guys that we are rooting for now. Let's say the yard sale, of the non-tendered and the
scrap
DFAs.
is a better word. Scrap is useful, you know, in
Absolutely.
the Amazon television studios property Fallout and Bethesda video game studios. You have to get all sorts of scrap, you know, toasters,
Also,
surgical
Scrappy Doo.
trays.
Don't forget
Yeah,
Scrappy
that's how you
Doo.
survive.
Scrappy Doo.
Lots of positive scrap.
The Padres are in Fallout mode.
That's a good way to put it. Let me ask you this. Let me ask you guys this. I'm curious what your answer would be to this. If the Diamondbacks don't make their offseason moves and the Dodgers make half of the offseason moves that they've made, how does it change the way that you feel about this offseason for the Padres at all?
No, now with the ownership and all the long-term storm
the
clouds
ownership
on the
stuff is
horizon.
different.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah.
But
yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
No, go ahead, Raphie.
The Dodgers were going to win the division no matter what. So that doesn't change anything for me. The Diamondbacks piece of it is more interesting because at the end of the day, they're eating potential wildcard wins that we would like to have for dinner. And so Corbin Burns is an interesting case because obviously I'm not thrilled that he's in Arizona, but anytime that a team is leveraging most of their free agent capital money that they're spending on a pitcher in their 30s, I'm always thinking, well, he could explode. And then what do we think about the Diamondbacks move?
Well, Raphie,
so, yeah, Chris,
I mean,
please.
The Diamondbacks did this last year with Jordan Montgomery and Erod.
Yep.
Ask me how. Same question. How did it work out for him?
Yeah.
Of course, they've got both of those players still. So
exactly.
It's not impossible that Jordan Montgomery out of nowhere pitches to a 3.2 ERA and throws 170 innings and does really well. I just feel like these guys are indicative of the placement of the team. And it's starting to feel less AJ Preller and more Kevin Towers.
Oh.
Kevin famously referred to himself as a sludge merchant.
Sludge merchant.
And trying to find the gems in the sludge. And that's what a Connor Joe Jason Heyward platoon is. It's trying to stitch something together and hope that you get the 70th percentile and then you get something decent. Gavin Sheets, give me a break. I love how Raphie put it in our rundown. Gavin Sheets non-tendered by ... the White Sox. Like, if they're letting you go, maybe not a prospect.
Well, like hold on, Craig. Hold on,
Craig. Just dumped by Kanye. You're like, oof.
Yeah.
What if I told you he can't really field and can't really hit?
Bat only. Power undeniable at 530. That's the problem. He's one of those 530 superstars. During batting practice, he'll hit the beach like 8 times in a row, and you'll be like, holy shit, Gavin Sheets. And then there will be like 10 hanging curveballs. If you play him all year, 10 times that year, someone will hang a curveball and he'll hit the absolute snot out of it. And then you go, holy crap. He's Russell Branyan light. And Russell Branyan was something else light, like Joey Gallo light. So that's what you're getting with Gavin Sheets. And what I think you're getting with Gavin Sheets is a couple of really impressive Peoria home runs, and then a designated for assignment / El Paso gets some bombs this year.
Can I ask you
altitude.
something that might be offensive to some of our audience? How much worse is Gavin Sheets going to be in the lineup, not at first base, because that's for an argument, than Jake Cronenworth? Like
a lot?
If you look at, no, I don't think so. I look at his line historically, and it looks a lot like Jacob Cronenworth, especially in the platoon against right-handers. Like the defensive question isn't one because Jake's way better, but I don't know, Craig. His line drive rate went up last year. Like there might be.
I don't know, man. Gavin Sheets has a career 89 WRC plus. I checked before this, but I'm just going to double check right now. And yes, that's right. Trent Grisham has a career 95 WRC plus. So I think before we start throwing stones in glass houses, Jake Cronenworth, for what it's worth, has a career WRC plus of 108. So
that's much better than 88, I believe.
I don't think there's any way Padres management, Schilt, Preller could look at the last month, especially last month of Jake Cronenworth, and say we can run this guy out there against left-handed pitchers. I don't know how you can be a serious management and do that.
Not when you've got Eggy out of options.
Yeah.
Like you literally have to let Eggy Rosario go if you don't put him on the big league team this year. So like there's no reason not to give him Jake's left-handed at bats and then just make Jake Cronenworth a better player and make Eggy Rosario a better player and have the two of them meet in the middle and maybe be a really good second base platoon. These are the ways you can squeeze a couple extra wins out of the Padres. I had a name I wanted to throw at you guys because, okay, we've got Connor Joe, we've got Jason Heyward. These guys are probably going to make the team. I believe Gavin Sheets won't make the team. That's just my personal opinion. I hope I'm proven right, to be honest. Usually when I say stuff like that, I say, I hope I'm proven wrong. But in this case, I hope I'm proven right.
Mike Brusso stand alongside you there, Craig.
Yeah, Brasso can hit a lefty. I saw it in that game in the COVID series for Tampa. I don't know. I mean, yeah, but he would probably take Rosario's spot or Connor Joe's spot. Brasso is going to kick ass at El Paso, and I'm getting that Star Wars jersey. I'm putting in the bid for Star Wars night for the Chihuahuas. I am getting the Mike Brasso jersey. I swear to you, I'm going to not be denied. I'm going to get that kit. Okay, we need starting pitching depth on this team. We need it in the worst way. And it's not going to come from anybody that you like. Like if we're signing Connor Joe and Jason Heyward, and that's our left field platoon, like we're not going out and getting Nick Pivetta. No, we're going to get the dude that's willing to come and keep his career alive.
This list is kind of rough.
Yeah. I've got an idea, and I was just looking him up again. And, prepare not to be overwhelmed by this, nor even whelmed, but hopefully not horribly underwhelmed. But what about Kyle Gibson? Like, if you're going to run an outfield of Heyward, Merrill, and Tatis that can run anything down, and you're going to get, you might be able to take a mediocre dude that can post up and get a decent season out of him. And in his age 36 season last year, Kyle Gibson still put up 169 and 2/3 innings in the National League. I mean, that's not nothing. His whip was 1.3. Like, it's not that far from Michael Wacha. It's like a point away from Michael Wacha. And if you took a couple of those fly ball homers and you put them in the gaps at Petco, and they're getting run down by Merrill and Tatis and the fog and the marine layer and such, I feel like Kyle Gibson gives you as good or better a chance of winning a game as Randy Vasquez, or Matt Waldron, probably, unless there's a step forward. And you need those innings, man. We need innings pitched. We're right now, the Padres are one injury away from Austin Krob starting games in the major leagues. Like, it's a danger zone.
Yeah. Or Brian Hoeing or Stephen Kolek, which are names that were floated out there, which I'm not prepared for at all whatsoever. I guess I want to poll the three of you guys. Kyle Gibson or Matt Waldron, who puts up the better numbers this season?
Kyle Gibson, I think.
Probably.
I think so.
See, I'm a San Diego Padres fan, so I'm going to say Matt Waldron.
That's fair. Matt Waldron's number one fan, according to many people. Like, I should say Waldron.
We're not printing a T-shirt, so I'm going to say Matt Waldron.
Never print the T-shirt again. No. Here's what I will say. This is one thing I am going to, feel free to play this back to me. 7 months from now when he's 2-11. But I feel like Randy Vasquez got better and better and better throughout the season until he got really tired and he went past what he normally had done. And his ball, like this movement patterns, he's kind of like a Michael King light in the way that he has that tailing fastball of late run, and then he's got the slider. He doesn't have the out pitch that King has. He doesn't have the stuff that King has, but he pitched well. He had a stretch towards the end, and he's young. He's one of the guys that we clearly asked for when we had leverage. So maybe they see something that we don't necessarily see at the moment, and I feel like there's a pleasant surprise to be unwrapped in Randy Vasquez this year.
Craig, I pray we can afford Kyle Gibson. That would be fantastic. I also dug Randy Vasquez, Justin. I don't remember exactly I think he got hurt. I think he took a liner to his ankle or something. There was a game where Randy Vasquez was dealing. He was having his best game as a Padres starter, and he took a liner to the ankle and was so upset to be coming out of the game that he was like crying. And I was like, hell yes, that guy wants to be out there so friggin' badly, and he knew the game he was having. So like I'm team Randy Vasquez. I hope that they can pace him out however they need to have him see success. Kyle Gibson's location plus last year was 102. Like his stuff plus was 86. So like a lot of guys long in the tooth, he's not going to overwhelm anybody with the heat, but he's got a decent slider. I hope we can afford that. If the guy can still locate the pitches and generate weak contact, he's going to play okay at Petco, even though we've seen the park factor get a little bit more offensive the last few years. I'd love to. I hope they can afford him. Like, what's he going to cost?
Well, I think the upside is that he's one of now like 75 major league veterans aiming for like 7 jobs. Maybe 10 or 15 as some injuries drip in here to start spring training. So on that level, if he wants to pitch, the idea to pitch for the San Diego Padres and have Manny Machado on the hot corner and have an outfield that can run down everything should be pretty exciting for him. On the downside, I heard Brandon Belt invited him on his boat. And once you get on there, like
Gibby seems like a fisherman. Yeah, that guy can wrap his lips around a can of Coors Light. I have no doubt.
We could still sign Brandon Belt. We could still sign him. I don't know.
He's still holed up in the Ritz-Carlton in Toronto eating chicken nuggets, which he did say was his favorite meal in Canada, were the chicken tenders. And I have to imagine with the tariff implications, he's probably hoarding them right now, just making sure that he's bringing all of them back in freezer bags across the border.
He is in a shot up 68 Pontiac somewhere in the woods right now, just tearing down a back road.
Dude, if they sign Brandon Belt tomorrow to be the DH, like just out of nowhere, the name that no one has mentioned for 8 months.
If they signed him, it would be like the thing with, it'd be like in the movies where Preller has to like drive out to the woods and Belt's like, I don't do that anymore.
Yeah,
like,
exactly. And Preller's like, come on, one last job. We're going to do it. Yeah, exactly.
Son of a bitch, I'm in.
I don't hold a bat anymore. I don't hit baseballs.
Okay, question. Who has better numbers this year, Gavin Sheets or Brandon Belt? And no, you can't kill yourself as the choice. you have to fuck one and marry the other.
Brandon Belt. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
God.
Brandon Belt will be at least league neutral.
Yeah.
Sheets may actively hurt you.
Can I ask you guys one other thing about that I am worried about, because I think we collectively kind of memory hold this because we turned it into one of our biggest strengths towards the end of after the trade deadline. But we all remember our bullpen before we made all the trades. And I'm looking at the bullpen right now, And if we're not going to get anything from Yuki or Wandy, we get what we got last season. Like, boy, oh boy. I mean, we were, if not for Suarez having a all-timer first half, I mean, there's some trouble there.
Justin, I'm not so worried about Roki because, as you know, our American balls are tight.
I'm not worried about Roki
you said
either.
Roki.
Yeah, none of us are worried about Roki.
I'm not worried about Yuki because our American balls are tighter, smaller, harder, a little harder to get a grip on. They're not as texturized as the Japanese balls. So I do think that.
Are we still talking about baseball?
We're talking about baseballs, you absolute filth machines. Like, it's a thing, and it's a little bit of an adjustment. And I think Yuki with year 2. I think we're going to see a better version, and they've had some reinforcements. Brian Hoeing, Sean Reynolds, Alex Jacob. I think these guys are ready for their moment in medium leverage, and towards the back, they've got some guys who have proven it. Jeremiah Estrada and Jason Adam both were fairly high leverage guys last year.
I'm gonna make a hot take, my first hot take of the season, because Yuki's name has been invoked twice now. I think that Yuki Matsui is going to have a better year than Adrian Morahone. And I don't think that means that Adrian Morahone's going to have a bad year. I think it means Yuki Matsui is going to be good this year. I really, really like Yuki's peripherals. I think his splitter is going to be excellent. And the problem with Yuki in his first season was that he was just walking guys a little bit more than he should have.
The balls are tight. The
balls are tight. It's his second year. And also we saw marked improvement in the second half from comparing it to the first half, especially in terms of that walk rate. So I think that Yuki Matsui is going to be good. As a reminder, we're paying Yuki to be the best left-handed arm in this bullpen. That's what we're paying him to do. And I think Adrian Morahone has a great role, and I would be happy with him as our 8th inning, solid lefty guy. I really believe in Yuki Matsui. I don't believe in Wandy Peralta at all. He was bad when he was on the Yankees, and he was bad here. He just had the actual batted ball results that he was supposed to have. I think Yuki's going to be better.
Wow, optimism show and pessimism teaser trailers right there.
All together. Well, I just pulled up Jason R.R. Martinez's Fangraphs page, roster resource page, just to kind of double look at it based on what you said, Justin. I mean, a bullpen of Suarez, Adam, Estrada, Morahone. Those are your top 4, so to speak. But Yuki is there. You've got Sean Reynolds. You've got Wandy. You've got Brian Hoeing. I think it's a pretty good bullpen. Yeah, I think it's a pretty good, solid, deep bullpen.
Yeah.
Middle of the pack.
Yeah, and you're an injury away or what. But the thing is, when I look at that, then I think to myself, I've been talking a lot about, well, we could afford to trade Robert Suarez.
Yeah.
And I'm just wondering who's the next guy that we'd be excited about. Is it the Baltimore Rule 5 kid that we might be carrying in the bullpen? Do we actually think Stephen Kolek is good now? I don't know. Is there? I'm not even trolling on this. Ron Marinaccio might be
legit,
pretty good. And if he was pretty good, maybe then you can afford to trade Robert Suarez. But right now, I feel like the group with as is could be strong, and the group -1 could be a little bit more scary, unless Yuki has the Raphie Cantor bump that he is planning to have.
And to be fair, the deal with Marinaccio is that he's coming from New York. Matt Blake, the pitching coach there, he is the sinker whisperer. Every guy there goes, he's especially because they're playing in Yankee Stadium. It's a little league ballpark. They got to be able to produce ground balls. And Marinaccio never really had the sinker come through for him, which is why he wasn't really of use to the Yankees, or at least fell out of favor with them. What he did have was a curveball, and he also, I think, had a slider. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know if you guys are up on your Marinaccio arsenal stuff. But I believe that is, from someone from the island of misfit toys that Ruben Niebla is able to look at and say, okay, that's my guy. I know how to make this guy good. And if we give him 42 innings, he's going to put up a, 3.6 ERA for us, which is all that we need. You know what I mean?
I do. And there's a couple other names out there. We don't talk about Brito. As mentioned, Nunez is a player.
About Brito,
We don't talk about Brito. There's a reason. Alec Jacob is a guy who I keep thinking his arm's going to helicopter off of his shoulder and just land halfway in between the mound and the plate. But he's there in the past. We did pick up the guy who pitched in Japan last year, JB Wendelken, who I will continue to call JG Wentworth until he forces me to know. But like, there's some stuff there, with Preller. You're always figuring like he's got a good eye, he's got good scouts, he's gonna get a couple of players along the way. But right now, I guess my basic baseline is I feel okay about the whole pitching staff right now. I feel terrible about the depth. Yeah. I think that the depth is a massive issue. I think we're an injury or two away from disaster, but we're okay if we don't trade any of these guys. But can we afford to not trade any guys and sign a Kyle Gibson and sign another guy, below that and roll with the whole staff as is and go to 249 or something, or 250 against the luxury tax.
It's funny because, I remember on our episode last year, Craig, you were talking about, it was a trade deadline episode, and you were like, I love how Preller will trade any pitching prospect because those just so rarely pan out. And I completely agree with you. I think like trade the pitching prospects because, one of them turns into Max Fried, but most of the time they turn into Meadows, Weathers. But
who might be good
Meadows.
now, Justin Halpern. Okay. He might be good.
That is what I was going to say, is that what happens when you constantly trade your farm system pitching depth is you never have those like fourth and fifth starters who then when something happens, you can pull up. Instead, you're pulling up Adam Mazur, who's not ready and maybe is not a major leaguer. You don't know. You're sort of rolling the dice. And so that is the sort of trade-off is we have nobody to pull up to do spot starts besides Walter. I mean, there's nobody there. There's nobody, right? Am I missing anybody from our farm system who could be a major league starter even for spots next year?
Omar Cruz, is being talked about, a guy who
Johnny
might get
Brito,
a few.
Ryan Bergert. Do we keep Luis Patino? Juan Nunez out of the Baltimore system. I'm looking at it right here. That's Ryan Bergert, who was so bad. He pitched like a 7.5 ERA last year in Double-A. So, like, we're going to bring that guy up. Maybe you'll get a major-like performance. Have you heard anything about
Kolek getting stretched out?
Maybe. But I would say that would be something that would be happening at AAA, and then he would maybe get called up if he had 8 straight starts where he didn't, have his hat shoved up his butt at AAA, and you'd be like, okay, he's doing good enough. Let's bring him up. I think all of these things are in our future, to be honest. I think there's going to be some like pearl clutching moments that Tevin will declare calamitous and others of us will be just like, okay, cool. It's Thursday. There's some kid up from AAA that's starting. We hope that Manny homers today and maybe we get a chance. But like, I do believe those moments are coming for the 2025 Padres. The Dodgers, meanwhile, will just bring up the next guy that they paid $25 million for, that's making $11 million this year to Kershaw will be like their 11th starter on their depth chart. And we'll just eagerly await the moment that he becomes the third starter in the playoffs because 8 guys are on the DL by November.
Oh, God. It is so unfortunate we're in their division. It's just of course, it's poetic, but it really is. I mean, what are we expecting out of you this year also? Like, how many innings are we getting out of 30. Is he turning 38 this year?
I
think
was
he's
just
38.
looking at his projections, and they're not horrible, but like they're affected by age. I want to say he gets like 140 innings in. Oh no,
That's 60
actually,
plus that need to get filled, man. You know, like we got to
Fangraphs
give those
has him at
innings to somebody.
160. So
Depends on the
Zips had him.
projection system.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some
Zips has him at
Zips was way
116.
low. Yeah. So it's a little all over the place.
Ugh.
Well, there's one last thing on the menu that, and I did when you wrote it down, Raphie, I actually had a reaction to it. So I want to get to that, and then we can wrap things up. Which is, you said, or you asked, how do the signings of Connor, Joe, Jason Heyward, throw away Gavin Sheets, but Joe and Heyward sign? How do those signings impact a potential trade? Well, I think it's a very interesting question because, you know, an episode ago, multiple episodes ago, we would have said you might trade Dylan Cease to get your left fielder.
Yeah.
Right? You might trade Dylan Cease to Baltimore and get Heston Kjerstad and then get maybe one other near major league ready, fifth startery type player. And that's how we're going to justify giving up a top 15 starter in baseball or a top 20 starter in baseball. Is we're going to say, well, we got a left fielder for 5 years and we got this other depth guy, you know, Bradish level, you know, type pitcher. And we'll be okay. Well, we don't have to do that because we've signed HeyJoe to play left field. HeyJoe. So now we could. This is how I believe it. I'm not saying that they're going to trade Cease. I actually think they won't. But Preller gets to sit in his happy zone, which is, oh, you want Cease? I want your best prospect. So now it would be, if you're trading with the Orioles, now it's either Kobe Mayo or it's Enrique Bradfield. And maybe now, if it was the Cubs, Matt Shaw, you know, right? Like maybe now it's a guy that isn't an automatic plug and play, must start opening day 2025. Maybe it's the get the best value you can. And we've developed that because we've backfilled with all of these, you know, D-level veteran $1 million guys.
My feeling is that we signed HeyJoe because those teams would not part with those prospects. That this is actually the reaction to that as opposed to the other thing.
Yeah.
Now, I'm sure, you know, Preller's like, hey, you got my digits, like hit me up if you change your mind, and absolutely we'll still go through with it. But yeah, I think that this was, you know, the plan was we have more 40-man roster spots than anyone else in baseball available. So we can wait this thing out. We can wait out the market. There will be desperate people who we can sign for cheap. And in the meantime, we'll try and swing a trade, but we're not going to trade unless we can move off of this position from, you know, an advantageous spot. Again, I said this in our Discord. I think I said it on the show. You know, we're 10, 11 years into the AJ Preller experience. And I think I'm really finally at the point where I'm glad that he's our general manager. Like, I feel his experience right now. He's operating on the margins in a way that a lot of people would not be able to do. And I don't envy the position that he's in, but I think finally all of the swings and misses and swings and misses and swings and sometimes hits and swings and misses have added up to someone who has learned his lessons a little bit and is willing to just only take the shot when the time to take the shot is the right time. So I don't know.
These signings for left field seem like the only path to keeping Dylan Cease. Like, if you can get that under your budget for, you know, $3.5 million with potential incentives, and then you unload Suarez, that gets you done under your CBT. And if that's the primary objective of the season, like, this is the way you would do it. Watching AJ, maybe, yeah, for his entire 10 years, I'm convinced some sort of fireworks are coming. And it may not be exactly, you know, Juan Soto trade or Dylan Cease trade levels of news making, but like I just feel like some other shoe is gonna drop. And you know, I had Cease as my number one most likely to get traded because it's the highest value, but it's the highest value to a winning team too.
Yeah.
And that's what the Padres have said they're going to do.
I just want to add one thing
Yeah,
really quickly,
go
which
ahead.
is that if Cease is traded away, Preller's also trading away the 35th overall pick in the 2026 MLB draft.
That is correct.
And
right.
so you're weighing that against whatever you'd be getting back as well. And this is a team that's going to need a bunch of prospects because they're not going to have any money to spend, Craig.
No, that's right. That's right. And I think the last thing I would say is I'm not sure that I agree, Chris, in terms of expecting fireworks coming, but here's where I expect it. I think the new plan is AJ going like, okay, just like you said before, oh, you won't give me the prospect you want for him? What about in July when you really need him?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because now it's play the game. Can we be good enough to be a winner? But if not, if it doesn't play, and if we're playing the 2023 game this year, we trade our Snell,
That's
and
the
that's
thing.
Dylan Cease, and we
That's
trade
a
our
hard
hater,
thing.
and that's Robert Suarez, and we can get value at the deadline, and we'll get people over a barrel. We'll get someone who's desperate. We'll get the Mets who are hungry, whatever, and we make that deal at that time. And then you look back at the end of the year and you go, damn, he wound up getting the value he needed for the guy he had.
I would just hope that he lays out some very definite parameters of where he's going to be, like how many games behind, at what point do you start doing it? Because grinding it out towards the exact deadline on that, it's going to be way too tempting to take the 9-3 and then 7-1 stompings of the Chicago Cubs to make, maybe we can make up these 4 games. He's just been in that position before. And
no, sorry, go ahead, Chris.
No, he's just chosen to keep his cards. And I like, where's the evidence that MO would change? And then we're hearing about how he failed to turn these assets into anything.
Well, I would say, the biggest deals he made last year were nowhere near the deadline. So I think that he's also a guy who, especially pitching is never worth more than when it's in season, because that's when these injuries pile up. And then suddenly, if you have not only an innings eater, but an ace or a number 2 on a team, that's what Cease is. Somebody goes down and you feel like your ball club, the Mets, perfect example, like look at their starting pitching. You don't think that it's, June and they're 29-29. You don't think they're going to be like, well, fuck. All right, now we're going to give you whatever you want for C. So I do have, I feel like I've gone through the whole cycle of Preller emotions. When he first started, I was like in the Matt Kemp era Preller. It felt like a toddler who was just like, I'm doing whatever I want, And I think he really has matured and understands this franchise and understands kind of what he can get away with now. And I feel like if we unload Cease, he's not going to do it for anything less than something that is going to make a real difference, whether it's prospect he can then flip for something else. But he's never shown that, aside from the time that he's traded for Cease, and even in that, like, what did we really give away? He's never shown that pitching is what he covets most. And so I feel like trading Cease for actual prospects who are hitters, play the field, like, I think that's something that he's looking for.
Sure, it's going to be really friggin' hard at the deadline with Petco Park selling out despite the team being 2 games under 500, but still only 5 or 6 back from somebody else in the NL. Like, I don't necessarily trust AJ to do it because we haven't seen it in so long.
Yeah.
Like, when's the last deadline sale we've seen AJ make? It was that year he kind of did a little column A, column B. And I don't know. I think if you're going to get Kyle Gibson, the only way you get Kyle Gibson is trading Dylan Cease and his $15 million.
Wow, really? We can't afford Kyle Gibson unless we trade Dylan Cease?
That's my take. That's my take. Like, this is.
I hate that take. I hate it.
It's true though. Where does the money come from?
I don't Gibson, settle down, Kyle. Sit down. Be humble. Come on over to the Padres. 1 year, 1.25 incentives, massive incentives. Let me tell you about the incentives. San Diego's an incentive unto itself. You can stay at Joe Musgrove's beach house. Dylan has found new property to stay. You can stay where Dylan stayed. Look how well it turned out for you.
We have a biomechanics lab. You can go eat sushi with Jackson Merrill.
I hope Niebla has taught Randy Vasquez a new pitch to get left-handers out. I mean, we can go down the road. Okay. Let's wrap up this one. Justin, what are you working on? What's going on in your life?
I'm finishing up season 4 of ABBOTT Elementary, which is we did 22 episodes this season. So we literally had the table read for the 21st today. So wow. We are feel very lucky to work on that.
One more season, and you guys are going to crack 100.
Pretty close, yeah. The magic number. And then no one will ever hear from me again. There will be palm trees behind me in this Zoom.
Yeah. Perfect.
Season 5 of the Harley Quinn show that we produced is just came out on HBO Max. So take a watch if you like that sort of stuff. And I really appreciate you guys having me on. I almost never miss an episode. I really, truly think you guys do an outstanding job. It is such a great show, and I'm very honored to be on it.
Well, the pleasure is ours, my friend. We are gifted to have you here. It is a privilege for us as well. So, and a lot of fun. And look at this. We had a ton of laughs, whistling past the graveyard once again, talking Padres baseball. All right. That's it for this week's show. If something magical happens, we'll be along, but otherwise we'll be back with you next week. For Justin Halpern, for Raphie and Chris, I'm Craig. Go Padres.